The Sunday shows just witnessed a brutal execution of every Democrat talking point of Trump's economy. Administration officials, armed with devastating facts, are leaving liberal hosts speechless. What the media desperately tried to hide is now exploding across every network, and the numbers don't lie, the results can't be spun, and the American people are seeing through decades of economic deception. While Democrats scream about imaginary disasters, something remarkable is happening to your wallet, your savings, and your future. The establishment's worst nightmare is unfolding. Trump's economy and his economic team is delivering exactly what they promised. The truth they revealed on the Sunday shows will fundamentally transform how you view everything. And we've got it all lined up in nice, perfect little segments just for you. And while Trump's economy surges and America's strength returns, there's one thing secretly sabotaging millions of men, and it's probably in your kitchen right now. Most guys blame age or genetics for low testosterone, but the real culprit is healthy food destroying your hormones. Sculpt Nation's Test Boost Max contains 8 natural ingredients that help restore healthy testosterone without prescriptions or injections, and they've helped thousands of men reclaim their edge. Watch their free video exposing this testosterone-killing food and learn how to naturally boost your levels. Go to sculptnation.com/NNN because the real economic power starts with personal strength. Now, Treasury Secretary Bessent just delivered a knockout punch to the media's inflation hysteria. We've got the clip, and watch as he calmly destroys their narrative with pure facts they can't dispute. Inflation is actually falling for the first time in years. This is must-see TV that exposes how wrong the press has been. Watch this.
We wanted to make sure that there aren't price increases, Margaret, and thus far there have been no price increases. Everything has been alarmist, that the inflation numbers are actually dropping. We saw the first drop of inflation in 4 years. The inflation numbers last week, they were very pro-consumer.
Right. But you listen to earnings calls just like we do. Mm-hmm. You know what Walmart's saying, what Best Buy's saying, and what Target are saying.
But Margaret, I also know what Home Depot and Amazon are saying. I know what the South China Morning Post wrote within the past 24 hours, that 65% of the tariffs will likely be eaten by the Chinese producers.
65%. That smackdown left the host visibly shaken. You see her like, yeah, the best inflation numbers in the 4 years, completely destroying their talking points. But he wasn't done demolishing the Democrat lies. The media keeps pushing deficit fear porn while hiding the real numbers. Now watch him reveal how Trump's team is actually shrinking the deficit, something Biden never accomplished despite all of his promises. Watch.
One of the reasons I'm sitting here talking to you today and not at home watching your show is that I was concerned about the level of debt. So the deficit this year is going to be lower than the deficit last year, and in 2 years it will be lower again. We are going to bring the deficit down slowly. We didn't get here in 1 year. We didn't get here in 1 year, and this has been a long process. So the goal is to bring it down over the next 4 years, leave the country in great shape in 2028.
Oh, I can't wait for 2028. But that means Donald Trump won't be here anymore. Who's going to take his place? Who's going to rise up? Well, let's just enjoy it while we can, shall we? And just look to the future as the Trump economy continues to roar. Now, this lower this year, he said, even lower in 2 years. A real plan with real results instead of empty Democrat promises. Now, the Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vought dropped the biggest bombshell on CNN. The one big beautiful bill delivers the deepest spending cuts since 1997, while Democrats claim it increases the deficit. Now watch him expose their fuzzy math and reveal the massive $1.4 trillion deficit reduction that they're desperately trying to hide. Watch.
This bill doesn't increase the deficit or hurt the debt. In fact, it lowers it by $1.4 trillion. What some of the watchdogs have done is they have used CBO's artificial baseline, which doesn't allow and assume that current tax law will be extended because of sunsets that are in the law. They don't do that with spending. It is totally something that would be foreign to any common sense person who comes and looks at how we budget in this country. And so when you assume the extension of the president's tax relief from 2017, this budget or this bill, and it's really a reconciliation bill. It's not really a budget bill. It is using a budget process. This is a $1.4 trillion over 10 years deficit reduction. It's $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings. Obviously, we have a little bit of spending in there as well for border and defense. But that is the biggest mandatory savings package that we have seen since the 1970s, 1997. It's very historic.
1.4 trillion deficit reduction that they're desperately trying to hide. You saw that, right? The largest mandatory savings package since 1997. No wonder Democrats are in complete panic mode about the bill. The Medicaid fraud crackdown has liberals melting down. Vaught explains how Trump's plan protects real Americans while booting illegals and fraudsters who've been stealing from you, the taxpayers. 1 in 5 Medicaid dollars is improper payment. That's billions in theft, and it all ends now. Watch.
This bill will preserve and protect the programs, the social safety net, but it will make it much more common sense. Look, 1 out of every $5 or $6 in Medicaid is improper. We have illegal immigrants on the program. We have able-bodied working adults that don't have a work requirement that they would have in TANF or even SNAP. And those are something that's very important to institute. That's what this bill does. No one will lose coverage as a result of this bill.
No one loses coverage except criminals and illegals, right? Exactly what Americans voted for when they elected Trump. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem exposed something massive about China's infiltration of our universities. Harvard alone has taken hundreds of millions from China while foreign students spy on America. Watch now as she reveals how Trump is cutting off schools that sell out to our enemies. Watch.
How much money, or do you know if Harvard has taken money from China?
Oh, my goodness. I don't know specifically, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, because these foreign students for years have paid full tuition. Plus, they've also gotten grants, special, participation in programs that China has financed and brought forward. So,
yes,
these ties to China are deeply alarming, and they're not just Harvard. There's other universities. We're going through every single one of them. If you come to this country to learn and you're a foreign student, and you recognize the opportunity, that's fantastic. But don't come here and spy on us and take that information back home to an enemy that is working to destroy us every day. And China has infiltrated this country. It's my job to protect the homeland, and I've been given that direction by President Trump. They will not participate in this foreign student program until they clean up their ways.
They won't participate in any federal programs until they stop being China's puppet. That is real national security leadership. The sanctuary city scam is over. Noem lays out how illegals have gamed our system for jobs, housing, and benefits while Americans suffer. Watch her now explain why mass deportations aren't just necessary, they are what voters demanded. Watch.
The president is doing exactly what he campaigned on and what the American people elected him to do, and that's enforce the law. And so we are going to do mass deportations. We are focusing on dangerous criminals. We are going out there and ensuring that people that repeatedly break our laws are being held accountable. And I would say and remind everybody that Congress directs what our laws are. They can change our programs. They can raise visa programs and guest worker programs. They can make it easier for us. We have suggestions, and I'm using all the authority that I have to meet our workforce needs. But also, we need to make sure that our communities are safer again. And those that think we can ignore these sanctuary cities and ignore laws so that we can keep somebody in a job is absolutely ridiculous. That's not what America is about. We have a workforce and a generation of people here in the United States that have been cheated out of jobs because of illegal immigrants that have come into this country and then taken advantage of housing programs and food programs and have had taxpayers pay their expenses. And it's not right. It's not fair. And it's time Americans come first, our citizens come first, and that our economy thrives because we are making sure that opportunities abound for those who live in this country.
Americans come first. Americans come first. The free ride for illegals at taxpayers' expense ends now. Commerce Secretary Lutnick destroyed the legal challenges to Trump's tariffs. Even if activist judges try one angle, Trump has multiple authorities from Congress. Watch him now explain why tariffs are here to stay and China can't stop them. Watch.
Congress gives the president, under this IEEPA authority, the ability to take on other countries who are creating a national emergency. And the $1.2 trillion trade deficit and all the underlying implications of that is a national emergency. It's gutting our manufacturing base. The president takes that on, and Congress lets him do it, specifically does not vote to take it away, calls a vote and says he can keep it. So what's going to happen is we're going to take that up to higher courts. The president's going to win like he always does. But rest assured, tariffs are not going away. He has so many other authorities that even in the weird and unusual circumstance where this was taken away, we just bring on another or another or another. Congress has given this authority to the president, and he's going to use it.
Oh, yes, he is. Congress gave the president the powers, and he's going to use them. $1.2 trillion trade deficit is a national emergency. Kevin Hassett delivered the ultimate reality check on ABC. Kill Trump's bill, and you triggered the biggest tax hike in history, guaranteed recession. Pass it, and we get 3% growth. Watch him now spell out the binary choice that's facing America.
Under the Congressional Budget Office analysis, that they say that there'll only be 1.8% growth over the next 10 years, and then they project deficits. If instead you get 3% growth over the next 10 years, then you don't. And so the answer is, what do you think growth will be? And do you think the odds of higher growth are higher if we pass this big, beautiful bill that has all this supply side stuff in it? And the other thing you have to think about, George, is what's the correct counterfactual? So if the bill doesn't pass, then we're looking at the biggest tax hike in American history. If we pass that tax hike, then of course we immediately go into recession. The Council of Economic Advisors projects the recession would be about 4% of GDP. Usually when you have a recession like that, then it increases the deficit by 6% of GDP. So the idea that it's worse for the deficit to do something that pays for itself if you get 3% growth is just not defensible intellectually, I believe, right now. And I got to say, George, as a final thing, that you'll recall that during the financial crisis when President Obama came in, that for 2 years in a row, he and the Democrats extended the Bush tax cuts because they didn't want to create a recession with a tax hike. So even they recognize that if there was a big tax hike right now, it'd be exactly the wrong time for the U.S. economy and the American worker.
Even Obama knew not to let tax cuts expire during recovery. Democrats are playing with economic dynamite. And Russ Vought also demolished the lie that Trump is cutting cancer research. Watch him now expose how NIH funds have been going to lobbyist parking garages instead of actual medical breakthroughs. Trump's redirecting that money to real research. Watch.
We believe that we need a strong NIH. We think it's important to have cancer research. We still do that under the president's budget that he put up 2-3 weeks ago, not last night. Last night, Friday night, was the technical details. But as it pertains to the NIH, we actually want it to go to cancer research. We want it to go to the research that people think that they have been funding through their tax dollars. We don't want it to go to what we saw in the pandemic when they're giving money to the EcoHealth Alliance. And we don't want it to go to waste, fraud, and abuse by allowing universities to charge far more than they would ever get from Bill Gates' foundation for things like office buildings, parking lots. It's called an indirect cost rate. Right now, we're saying it needs to be 15%. Bill Gates says it's 10%. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 or 40% right now. It's far in excess of what the private sector would expect.
I want to move on, but people who do this cancer research argue that the federal government funding those building blocks, even the office buildings, allows them to spend money on the actual life-saving research.
We understand that the recipients of federal dollars always want more than what the federal government may be willing to do, but we think it's important to look at the private sector and also get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse.
So it is a philosophical switch that the private sector should be more responsible.
It's a philosophical perspective, unfortunately, based on the way this town has been run, to actually model the amount of reimbursement based on how the private sector does, how something like the Bill Gates Foundation would do, and to pare it down so that we're not paying for largesse at schools and universities that have these well-off endowments.
Private sector rules apply now. If Bill Gates won't pay those overhead rates, why should taxpayers? But here's what really has Democrats terrified. CNN's own polling shows Republicans have erased their advantage as the party of the middle class. Harry Enten couldn't even believe his own data. for Democrats. For decades, Democrats own the issue. Now it's completely tied. Watch this moment.
Yeah, you would think after all of the waves, Kate Baldwin, after the last few months, the first 5 months of the Donald Trump presidency, right, the first 4 months of the Donald Trump presidency, that you expect that Democrats would have this massive lead on the economy. It ain't so. It ain't so. The party that is closest to your economic views, in November of 2023, it was the Republicans by 11 points. Now it's still within that range, still within that margin of error. Plus 8-point advantage for the Republican Party. How is that possible, Democrats? How is that possible after all the recession fears, after the stock market's been doing all of this, after all the tariffs that Americans are against, and Republicans still hold an 8-point lead on the economy? Are you kidding me?
This is new CNN polling.
Yes.
How is that, when we look for trends, how is that trending with other data that you're pulling in?
Yeah, if it was just this one CNN poll, that would be one thing. But take a look at Reuters Ipsos. What do we see here? Party with a better economic plan. Well, in May of 2024, just before Donald Trump was reelected president, Republicans had a 9-point advantage. Look at where we are now in May of 2025. The advantage actually went up by 3 points. Now Republicans have a 12-point advantage when it comes to the party with a better economic plan. And again, this is after months of supposed economic uncertainty in which the stock market's been going bonkers, in which the tariff wars that Americans are against have been going on. And yet, despite all of that, the Democrats are down by 12 points on the economy. This speaks to Democratic problems on the economy better than basically anything that you could possibly look at. The Republicans still hold an advantage on the all-important key issue of the day, and that is the reason why, even if Donald Trump's approval ratings are a little bit lower than they used to be, Republicans are not out of the ballgame because they still have a clear advantage on the economy, whether you look at CNN's polls or whether you look at the Ipsos poll right here, in which they have a 12-point advantage on the economy, Kate.
And also in the CNN data, it does show that Republicans are gaining ground in an area that is key relating to all of this, which is when it comes to the middle class.
Yeah. You know, historically speaking, which is the party of the middle class, has been a huge advantage for Democrats. I have polling from NBC going all the way back since 1989, when Democrats had a 23-point advantage. 2016, a 17-point advantage. But by this decade, we already started seeing declines back in 2022, where you saw that Democrats led, but only by 4 points, well within the margin of error. And now in our latest CNN poll among registered voters, which is the party of the middle class, it is tied. This, I think, speaks to Democratic ills more than anything else. They have traditionally been the party of the middle class. No more. Donald Trump and the Republican Party have taken that mantle away, and now a key advantage for Democrats historically has gone adios amigos, and now there is no party that is the party of the middle class. Republicans have completely closed the gap, Kate.
All right. There's a lot of messages and a lot to be learned from these numbers and this data. It's good to see you, Harry.
Nice
Thank you.
Oh, I was muted. Sorry, I have this habit. It must have been very painful for them to report that. No party owns the middle class anymore. Trump has completely rewritten the political playbook. And Jim Jordan summed it up perfectly on Fox. You know it's a great bill because the left hates common sense, provisions, tax cuts, border security, work requirements, school choice. Watch him explain why Democrats are terrified.
I said this on the House floor. You know it's a good bill because the left hates it. And the left hates it because it has core common sense Republican principles in it. It cuts taxes. It secures the border. It says if you're an able-bodied adult and you're getting welfare, you're going to have to work. And it says to moms and dads, we got school choice in here. So we know you are the best one to pick where your son or daughter is going to get the best education. 4 key Republican common sense conservative principles. That's why the left doesn't like it. That's why it's good legislation.
4 core conservative principles that Democrats despise because they actually work for American families. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So the Sunday shows just proved what we've known all along. Trump's economic agenda is unstoppable. Democrats went on every network predicting doom and recession and catastrophe. Instead, inflation's dropping, the deficit's shrinking, and Republicans now own the middle class vote. The one big beautiful bill isn't just legislation, it's the death blow to decades of Democrat economic lies. They claim that tax cuts hurt workers while secretly enriching their donors. They screamed about imaginary Medicare cuts while ignoring billions in fraud. They defended China's infiltration of our universities while American students drowned in debt. Now their house of cards is collapsing. Treasury knows it, budget knows it, even CNN's own polling confirms it. The era of economic gaslighting is over. So here's my question. Should Congress pass the bill immediately or wait until Democrats beg for mercy? Drop your answer below. And remember, Patriots, support the truth. It's shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.